So the purpose of this particular video is to acquaint people who are completely unfamiliar with Windows 8 with the nature of the Windows 8 interface. I've got another video that deals specifically with using a tablet. So this should only be viewed if you are not familiar with Windows 8 at all, like you've been using Windows 7 or below. The topics that we're going to talk about are the difference between the desktop and Metro interfaces, the start menu, and I'll mention a piece of software you can acquire, Classic Shell, if you need to get an old start menu instead of using the standard Windows 8 start menu. I'll talk a little bit about charms and settings, and I'll talk a little bit about OneDrive, which is the cloud-based storage solution that Microsoft advocates. And if you are a USF faculty member, which most of us are, what will happen in the next few months is IT is migrating us to a Windows 365 environment. And so OneDrive will definitely become part of our lives as USF faculty. So when you first encounter Windows 8 or 8.1, chances are your tablet's going to show you a screen something like this. If you are like most of us, your immediate reaction is, huh? So how do we deal with something like this? Well, the first thing you need to understand is that when the iPad came out, the tablet was conceived of as a device for content consumption. It's great for videos, it's great for reading and so forth, but it's really a terrible device for content creation. The finger is not a very good way of creating content, and you don't have a mouse, you don't have the kind of application suite that you have. So most of the time, when you're dealing with a tablet, a Microsoft tablet, which is a great tool for both content creation and content consumption, you are going to want to go to your desktop. And so sliding back and forth with my finger here, you see a desktop icon here. When I press the desktop, now I'm at a familiar Windows desktop. Now there are a few other things about tablet navigation and setup that you might want to become aware of. If you've worked with Windows 8 or 8.1, you may be familiar with these. If you're not, you're going to be in a totally new world. One of the most important things is the start button. And one of the things we can see over here, if I move my pen down, is you can see a start button. This will take me to the start menu that I was just on. And very likely there's also a hardware button that you can press to get to the start menu. But what I will do is I will go to the start menu now. Now the start menu has two types of application on it. It's got desktop applications. For example, you can see over here all the common Office applications that I've already installed on this machine. Plus, it has apps that are specifically for the tablet, sometimes referred to as Windows RT or Metro apps that don't run under the desktop, that are actually a lot more similar to what you might find if you were using, say, an iPad. One of the big complaints about Windows tablets is its suite of apps is not that good. There is a store which has all the apps, and it's nowhere near as well stocked as the store for Android or iPad, but it is available. Now, you'll notice I just pressed the store button and it's loading the store up. I actually haven't opened it on this machine before. If I want to get rid of anything, the easiest way to do it is to take my finger and just drag down from the top of the screen. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and that'll take me back to the main Windows start area. Another important interface device is the menu that goes on the side. And so, for example, if I put my pen up near the top corner here, you'll notice this menu comes down. And settings allows me to turn off and on the machine. If I just click somewhere else, it goes away. I'll open the thing up again. This time what I did is I took my finger and slid from the right towards the left, which will also open it. There's direct access to the start menu. There's a search of your machine. There's a list of devices you have. I'll show the devices that I currently have. Play, print, project devices. And then, of course, you can also just click here to the start area to return to the start menu. And in this particular case, what I have done is I have returned to the desktop, which is where my start position is. Now, when I go from the desktop and do the same menu, you see the settings down here. If I click on settings, that allows me to do things like get the control panel and the other settings that I would commonly use when I'm on the desktop. So I'm going to return to the start menu and talk about one more thing, and then that will be my kind of overview of Windows 8 and 8.1. There are a lot of YouTube videos if you're not familiar with them, so it probably doesn't make sense for me to do just a less good quality job on these than have been done on YouTube. But I'll return to the start area right now. One of the things that will happen is that when you install a desktop application, which you will do exactly the same way that you would do in a normal Windows 7 environment, it doesn't appear anywhere. And so the question is, well, what do I do? And so what you need to do when you have a desktop application is if you bring your pen over here, you'll notice this little arrow down here. Whenever you see this little arrow, what that is going to do is it's going to open up the application area, which shows all your applications. So I'm now in the application area, and you can see I've got a couple of new applications installed. We've got a whole bunch of different applications which I have yet to install. And over here, as we move over to the drag over to the right, you can see various Office applications and other types of applications that are principally for the desktop. Let's say that I wanted to have the Windows Journal appear on that start screen. What I can do is I can put my finger on it and just drag it down a little bit, and you see that customize. So if I click on, sometimes it takes me a little time to get this selected. Okay, I gave it a second press. You'll notice I have a bunch of options down here. If I click on Pin to Start, that is going to move it to the Start menu. And then what I can do is just touch it, select it, and drag it over. Windows Journal is a nice tool for tablets, so I'm just going to move it over here to my Start area so that when I press the Start button, that is immediately accessible. You can also change the size of the icons if you select one of these. You can see one of the options is resize. You can have a double panel size like we have on this inbox over here, or you can have a single size. It doesn't really matter. But after you install a normal desktop application, you may need to do this because otherwise you will not be able to access it easily. There is a wonderful program called Classic Shell. It's an open source program that you can use, and if you install that, it will actually recreate the Windows 7 or the Windows XP start button and will populate it with all your applications. It's a really nice application. I use it on all my other systems, but I'm going to keep it off this system because I want to get into the habit of actually using the Windows 8.1. But if you do a search for Classic Shell, it's open source, it's free, it takes a minute or so to install, and it really does a nice job. And if you're getting started working with Windows 8.1 or Windows 8, it can be a nice thing to have. Another feature that is related to Windows 8 and 8.1, and there's going to be a particular relevance to those of us who are faculty members at USF, is OneDrive and the Office 365 environment. USF is shifting all its faculty accounts from local Exchange servers to this Microsoft hosted system. And part of what will happen in that is that you will be given a OneDrive account. Now, you can also create a OneDrive account when you just create a Microsoft account. In fact, you'll automatically get 7 gigabytes. But then there are lots of other things that can add the gigabytes. For example, when I bought a Microsoft Surface tablet, I got an extra 200 gigabytes. When I bought the subscription to Office 365 for 4 years, I got another 20 gigabytes and so forth. So I actually have close to 300. But OneDrive is shared drive space, very similar to Dropbox, with a couple of slight differences. And right now I'm in the Start menu, so I'll click on OneDrive, and we can see my OneDrive account. As you can see, I basically put everything that I use on OneDrive, and that means that I can basically move from computer to computer without making any changes. Now, the OneDrive web access, of course, has the slight disadvantage that every time you want to get a document, it has to be downloaded from the web. But what you can also do on your desktop is essentially download the desktop version of OneDrive, which I have done, and you can then have it so that everything that's on your OneDrive account can be downloaded to your local PC. And I do that on a couple of my PCs. I don't do it on my tablet because on my tablet I really don't need to have all that stuff because I can always get it from the web when I need it. But you'll notice here I've got a OneDrive, and this is the same documents area that we saw before, but here it's in the normal display, and if I need a document I can just automatically download it. As I mentioned, OneDrive is different from Dropbox in a couple of ways. One way is that it's designed for collaborations in Office documents. So you can provide other people access to your documents and you can collaboratively edit on a OneDrive account. And Office 365, which is basically the Office 2013, and it's also somewhat supported by Office 2010, will allow you to essentially work together on the same document at the same time. In that respect, it's a little like Google Docs. Now, the other difference between OneDrive and Dropbox, which is perhaps a little bit less positive, is that OneDrive does not refresh nearly as often as Dropbox does. If you have a Dropbox account, it is multiple times a minute, maybe even multiple times a second. It's checking to see if things are updated, and it's constantly moving stuff back and forth. That puts a very heavy load on your computer. OneDrive does not do the checks nearly as often, but that means it can take a while for your OneDrive documents to become updated on different machines. That's an advantage in terms of computer performance, but it is a disadvantage in terms of the speed with which the documents move around. So I will sometimes keep a Dropbox account on my machine so that when I need to, I can move documents over very quickly. But as I mentioned, I use OneDrive on all 5 of my computers, And what that means is I never really have to worry about backing things up or whether a particular document is available to me. It always is. The only exceptions that I have are videos, because videos take up a lot of space, and so I keep them sort of offline, either on the local drive of my machine or on a USB drive, so as to have them available when I need them. But I typically only do video editing on a couple of machines. Now, one thing you have to think about as USF makes the transition to Office 365 and OneDrive is, what is your Microsoft account going to be? Because when you set up a Windows 8 machine, you're going to specify a Microsoft account, and that is going to have a lot of different implications. For example, it will open the account for you on Outlook.com, which is what I use for my email. It will link to your OneDrive account. It will link to all your other various Microsoft accounts. Now, if you already have a lot of Microsoft accounts, it will probably make sense for you to keep your USF account as a separate set of Microsoft accounts. But that means that when you create your PC setup, you may want to set up two logins. One login for your regular Microsoft accounts and one user for your USF accounts. And probably the folks at USF IT will provide some instruction on this, but it's just something that you need to be aware of.